Hello, everybody. Welcome back to English Digest. I'm Leah.
And I'm Tom.
And today we're going to look at the hashtag Free Brittany and the question of conservatorships. I have to say, this is a topic, these are two topics, really, that are just really very serious in American culture. The hashtag Free Brittany, if you don't know what that Brittany is referring to, it's talking about Britney Spears. And she has been under a conservatorship for quite a long time. And a conservatorship is when you have some problems, maybe with your physical or mental health, and you need someone to take care of your property. And it can even go to your physical health as well. You might be older and you have some problems there. Or you might have some, just some mental problems that you're dealing with where you can't really take care of all your day-to-day important details. And then you have someone who will come and take care of you. They will be your guardian, they will be your conservator, and you will be the conservatee, I think it's called.
Yes, so maybe you've heard about this situation before. Britney Spears has been around for quite some time, actually. I have to admit I'm not really big on pop music, so I'm not really familiar with her music. I think I only know one of her songs. I think it's Oops, I Did It Again or something like that.
And then we've got a word that we used earlier in the month, toxic. She has a song called Toxic.
Okay, that's more than I know. But indeed, you may have heard of her, and I think she's still going strong out there, still performing and stuff like that. But there's this problem with her father wanting to control her life, and that has to do with this conservatorship, which we'll explain to you in today's lesson.
So now we're going to stop and listen to the lesson all the way through.
Britney Spears has been a professional entertainer since her childhood. However, media attention in recent years has been focused on her tangled story of mental health, financial exploitation, and the conservatorship at the center of the hashtag Free Britney social media movement. As early as 2014, Britney was requesting an end to the conservatorship, but it wasn't until June 2021 that she was finally granted the opportunity to speak on her own behalf at a public hearing. She condemned the conservatorship as abusive and harmful and requested changes to its management with an eye to ending it entirely. The conservatorship has been in place since 2008, when Britney's father, Jamie Spears, requested that a California court permit him to take over important life and career decisions for his daughter. The petition was approved on the heels of 2 consecutive involuntary psychiatric holds. That is, due to erratic behavior, Britney was taken to a psychiatric care facility. This is the customary usage of conservatorships. They help concerned parties care for adults who don't have the capacity to manage their own affairs. In Britney's case, the intense media pressure she was subjected to during her highly public divorce and loss of custody of her children in 2007 culminated in a breakdown that was cruelly mocked in the news. While some conservatorships cover only financial matters, others are more comprehensive. For years, Jamie Spears held the positions of both conservator of the estate and conservator of the person, as he maintained that Britney wasn't stable enough to manage her money, career, or personal decisions. Though health issues forced him to take a step back from these duties in 2019, he insists that he has done nothing to warrant his removal as a conservator.
Okay, guys, we're back now looking at hashtag Free Britney and the question of conservatorships. Britney Spears has been a professional entertainer since her childhood. And I don't know about you, Tom, but when I hear that someone has been a professional anything from their childhood, I always get a little bit worried for the person as they grow up, because many times when people become very, very talented in their field from a very young age, they don't do so well when they get a little bit older.
Exactly. So we can tell that she's kind of had an interesting life here with lots of twists and turns. I remember many years ago she married somebody on an impulse or something like that, and they got divorced.
She married her high school sweetheart on an impulse, and then they had it annulled, which is what you do when it's a very short time. And then she went on after that to marry Kevin Federline, who she had her 2 sons with.
Okay, very good. So, yes, she's had an eventful life, but again, she's been an entertainer since she was a child. However, media attention in recent years has been focused on her tangled story of mental health, financial exploitation, and the conservatorship at the center of the hashtag Free Brittany social media movement. So, yes, indeed, when you think about an entertainer, you tend to think about the songs they sang, their hits, their albums and stuff like that. And maybe you were lucky to go see her in concert as well. But the media hasn't really focused so much on her career. They've been focused on more of the gossip regarding her. It's a tangled story of various things. If something's tangled, it's kind of mixed together and it's very difficult to sort it out. Tangled is most often used to describe your hair, for example, or string, or other things like that. It gets tangled. I know I have a problem with my headphones when I want to take them out and listen to songs. They're often tangled, so I have to untangle them. And in this particular case, as she has a tangled story, it's just really complicated and it involves all sorts of stuff.
Right. You can also have a tangled fish line. And it doesn't just involve her tangled mental health, her tangled story of mental health. It also involves financial exploitation. When you exploit something or someone, you are using their things to your benefit. So you might exploit a country's oil. You take their oil and it's for your benefit. Financial exploitation is talking about taking someone's money and using it for your own benefit. So they're not getting the benefit of it, you are. And that's really quite a sad situation. There's an expression that says when there is a lot of money, with a lot of money comes a lot of greed. And the story that we're going to be talking about over the next 2 days really has a lot to do with a lot of greed, because you've got her father just not letting go of her financial situation and controlling her mental health situation as well. And the conservatorship at the center of hashtag Free Brittany social media movement. So this hashtag Free Brittany movement is a social media movement. That's something you're probably seeing out there on Twitter. Lots of people are getting together and saying, we want Brittany to be free. I know a lot of her former boyfriends and a lot of her friends are like, hey, it's time for her to be free of this conservatorship.
Yeah, she's in her 30s now, isn't she? Almost 40. So, yeah, what's she doing being controlled by her father like that? She should be free and independent. But, of course, there are lots of ways to look at this different situation. So let's talk a little bit about the history of her situation. As early as 2014, which would be, about 6 years ago, Brittany was requesting an end to the conservatorship, but it wasn't until June 2021 that she was finally granted the opportunity to speak on her own behalf at a public meeting. So she started to try to do this about 6 years ago in 2014. She was requesting an end to the conservatorship. She does not want to be controlled by her father anymore. She wants to be free and independent. But it took a long time for people to, I guess, grant her the opportunity to let her speak on her own behalf. And if you speak on someone's behalf, you speak for that person. Okay, so maybe that person cannot speak for themselves, so you might speak for that person. Like, for example, if somebody won the Academy Award or something like that, but they could not attend because they were sick or something, then someone would come to accept the award on that person's behalf.
Yeah, and you might do something on somebody's behalf or for somebody's behalf. So you might take care of their financial situations on their behalf if you have the legal right to do this. She condemned the conservatorship as abusive and harmful and requested changes to its management with an eye to ending it entirely. So she condemned it. She very strongly was against it, said it was a bad thing. and she condemned her conservatorship. She said it was abusive. If something is abusive, it means that it's making you feel like you are a victim. It's making you feel vulnerable. It's either making you feel vulnerable physically or mentally, and a lot of times it's somebody else who is doing something abusive to you. They are mentally abusing you. They are physically abusing you, and that is creating a system of abuse or a habit of abuse that you might be living in. And that's a terrible thing for people to be dealing with every single day.
Yep, abusive is the adjective. Maybe you've heard of someone you know whose parents are abusive to them. They beat them, they call them names and stuff like that. They're abusive. And the verb is to abuse, and then the noun is abuse. So maybe you know of someone who's suffering from abuse. Etc. So in any case here, she was describing this conservatorship as being abusive. It's mean, it's cruel, it's unnecessary. She also said it's harmful, and also she requested changes to its management. She wants it to be kind of changed around a little bit. And then eventually, it's saying here she has an eye to ending it entirely. So she wants to change it at first, and then later, eventually, maybe in a year or two or so, she wants it to totally end, and she can be free from the conservatorship.
Okay, guys, so that's where we're going to stop right now. Let's listen to our Chinese teacher talk.
听众朋友大家好，我是安娜。我们今天跟明天要来带大家来看看这个小甜甜布兰妮她的一个特别的事件，就是她被监管，被她的父亲监管的事件。那我们先来看一下小甜甜布兰妮，她的名字叫做 Brittany Spears， 就出现在文章第一句的前面。那么她的父亲呢叫做 Jamie Spears， 那么她的父亲作为一个监管。那监管这个英文单字，请看一下 title 的最后一个字叫做 conservatorship。 为什么特别有这个字呢？因为我们知道18岁成年之前我们都会有个监护人，还没成年本来就会有监护人，可是如果是成年之后，因为一些种种特殊的因素，例如比如说精神状况，那这时候就会由相关的当事人呢作为一个监管，那负责决定他的一些事情。好，有这个概念之后呢，我们就来看一下，因为我们刚刚说过，因为这个小甜甜布兰妮之前是有一些精神的状况，所以才被父亲所监管。所以我们特别来看一下第一段的第二句的地方，因为最近呢，媒体的注意力一直会聚焦在他的一些心理健康啦，他的经济是不是被剥削啦，还有监管这种焦点，所以就有很多一些报道的故事。我们来看一下特别第二句的地方，因为文章当中有提到一个时间点叫做 in recent years， 只要看到 recently in recent years 或者是 for 加上一段时间，原则上时态都一定会用现在完成式。好 has been focused on something。 好，那么他到底什么时候被监管呢？其实很久很久2008年那个时候就开始监管了，但是在2014年也就是7年前 Brittany 就一直要求要终止监管。第三句的前面 as early as 可以把它画起来，字面上就是早至什么什么时候。7年前哦，很早哦，早在7年之前2014年的时候 Brittany 就要求要监管。同样第三句有一个很重要的句型，基本上它是一个 until 再配上强调句的句型。好，我们先对 until 做一个解释。until 后面加上时间，中文翻成直到什么时间之前，它强调的是这个时间之前的概念。那文章有特别提到2021年6月之前它都不能够代表自己发言，所以句子本来应该是，假设我们用简单的句子来呈现，这个句子本来应该要表达的是 She was not granted the opportunity， 她没有被同意表达自己的机会until 2021， 直到2021年。所以时间之前的状况是他没有被允许有表达自己的机会。好，那么现在插入了一个什么呢？插入一个强调句。强调句型就是用 it is 加上原本句子要强调的部分，再加上 that， 然后再把原来陈述句的剩下字眼全部都填上去。那么他当时的发言就是谴责监管是滥用， 而且有害，而且要求改变管理，而且试图呢彻底的结束这样子的一个 conservatorship。We're
going to take a short break now, but please stay tuned. We'll be right back. Okay, everybody, let's continue with our lesson. Again, we're talking about Britney Spears, and she's had this problem with the conservatorship that you may have heard about. It was in the news last summer, and eventually she was given the chance to speak on her own behalf last summer. But she was trying to make some changes to this conservatorship or get rid of it entirely since the year 2014. So let's talk about this conservatorship and exactly how it came about and what exactly it is. Here in the next paragraph, it says the conservatorship has been in place since 2008. It started then, and that's when Britney's father, Jamie Spears, requested that a California court permit him to take over important life and career decisions for his daughter. So again, it began back in 2008, and Britney's father thought, my daughter can't really take care of herself. She can't handle her own finances and things like that. I'm going to ask the court to let me take over aspects of her life.
And with Britney Spears, if you remember at the time, she really did go through some very difficult things. She ended up acting out by shaving her head, and she took an umbrella and was beating, I think, a paparazzi car one time. And this all because she's constantly followed by the paparazzi. This was all photographed. So everybody saw her being different than maybe what people expect her to be. So in some ways, I guess Jamie Spears had a good reason originally to go in and try and help her get back into a better place. But to me, on some levels with a conservatorship, it's one of those things that ideally is temporary if the person is able to get into a better mental frame of mind. Maybe their mental health was from quite a few things going on in their life at the time. For her, it was a divorce. It was a loss of custody of her children. Maybe there's other things. I think she also had a manager or a friend who was feeding her some pills that she shouldn't have been taking. And getting that guy away from her might have helped her out just significantly as well.
Right. We don't really know this guy's intentions, whether he's just motivated by greed or he's really concerned about his daughter's well-being. But in any case, the fact is back in 2008, he requested a California court allow him to take over various aspects of her life and in order to make career decisions for her. And when you ask a court to do something, we call that a petition. Okay, so the petition or the request was approved on the heels of 2 consecutive involuntary psychiatric holds. Okay, so on the heels of means right after something happened. So I guess there were something called psychiatric holds, which is some kind of psychiatric procedure or something like that?
Well, that's when you go into a psychiatric ward and they hold you in the ward because they think you are a danger to others or to yourself. Most likely it's going to be that you are a danger to yourself. So they're going to keep you within the psychiatric ward until a period when you are doing a little bit better and you will be free to go again. So oftentimes with the psychiatric hold, it's not something that is long-term, I don't believe. I think it's something pretty brief, either 48 hours or a couple of weeks or something like this. And she didn't have just one, but she had 2. So, or multiple. Here it's talking about 2. Consecutive here means one after the other. So you can have consecutive films. If, say, for example, for Star Wars or for the new Dune films, they will come out with consecutive films, or the Marvel series. And those holds that she had were involuntary. It means that they were not something that she said, hey, I'm not doing so well in my head. I think I better go to the psychiatric ward. They were not things that she agreed to. She didn't volunteer to let them happen to her. They came and they took her.
It was against her will, basically. So she was put in a mental hospital, in a psychiatric ward. And again, she did not want to go. And these things happened one after the other. They were consecutive and they were due to erratic behavior, supposedly. If you have erratic behavior, you're just behaving really, really weird and people think you're crazy or something like that. You do crazy things like shave your hair or beat somebody with an umbrella or something like that. That would be considered erratic behavior by a lot of people. So as a result of that, she was taken to a psychiatric care facility, which is another word for a mental hospital.
This is the customary usage of conservatorships. They help concerned parties care for adults who don't have the capacity to manage their own affairs. So customary means the usual, the common, the most normal usage of this conservatorship is that they take care of people when they can't take care of themselves. There's a really good and scary show on Netflix called I Care a Lot. If you get a chance to watch it, I think it's Rosamund Pike who's in it. And it shows a disturbing side to conservatorships, which is something that we're going to kind of continue to talk about. Ideally, a conservatorship is there to help a person when they're not doing so well, when they can't make decisions on their own, when maybe they've had involvement with drugs or alcohol and they have a cloudy head, or they are mentally unstable. And it's supposed to help them do better. But ideally, it's also something that later on they can get rid of, as hopefully in Brittany's case.
Yep, that's the customary image of conservatorships. They're supposed to help these people because they can't take care of themselves for whatever reason, and they've lost the ability or they've lost the capacity to manage their own affairs. And in Brittany's case, the intense media pressure she was subjected to during her highly public divorce and loss of custody of her children in 2007 culminated in a breakdown that was cruelly mocked in the news. So she went through a lot in 2007 there. She had a lot of media pressure. The paparazzi were not leaving her alone, but she had some terrible things happening in her life. She had a divorce, which was public. Everybody knew about it. It was in the news. There were headlines every day about her divorce and the trial and all that kind of stuff. And then she also lost custody of her children, which would be devastating. I suppose you'd feel really bad if someone took your kids away.
Terrified
right?
if that would happen. Yes, absolutely.
Indeed. So, right, she was under lots of pressure from the public and from the press, and with all these terrible things happening. So it all culminated or all ended in a breakdown. She suffered a breakdown, nervous breakdown, I guess we could say that was. She suffered that, and because she suffered from that, she was mocked in the news. They weren't trying to be supportive. They were just interested in selling newspapers, so they made fun of her. And, they mocked her.
That was something that was very commonly happening in that time frame with the stars out there. Whenever their embarrassing business was put out, people just laughed at them and really did not, see them as human. And Britney Spears is somebody, she's walking down the street with her child in her arms, and people are taking photographs of her. They're in her face, and she slips, and her child almost slips. Her bodyguards pick her up, keep the child from slipping, and it's all on film. Everything she does is on film. If you think about it, everything you do in a day being photographed or being on film, think at how much of a lack of privacy you would feel you have. While some conservatorships cover only financial matters, others are more comprehensive. So some are just about the money, and some are about more than that. And that is what happened with Jamie Spears. For years, Jamie Spears held the positions of both conservator of the estate and conservator of the person. So he not only took care of all of her financial stuff and everything like that, he also took care of her and her physical health. I've heard stories that he gave the medicine, or he had the medicine that she was supposed to take every day given to her bodyguards and keepers in an envelope, so they didn't even know what she was being given. So he had a lot of power in that situation.
And he maintained that she was not stable enough to manage her money, to manage her career, or to manage her personal decisions. That's what he said. Hey, I'm doing this because she just can't do it herself. I'm doing her a favor. And though health issues forced him to take a step back from these duties in 2019, he insists insists that he has done nothing to warrant his removal as a conservator. So, of course, he got sick in 2019, so he couldn't do these things so much, but he still insists that he hasn't really done anything wrong. He has done nothing to warrant or to deserve being removed as conservator. He thinks he should still be that conservator.
Right. So if you warrant something, you cause something, right? Have a need for something. It can also be a noun. You can receive a warrant when you do something wrong and you have to go to court. You can have a warrant to go to court. So to be removed, it just means to be taken away from. And yeah, so he said there's no reason why he should be taken away from being her conservator.
Indeed, and this, of course, is a very complicated topic, so we're going to talk about it again in our program next time. Please join us then, but right now we need to listen to our Chinese teacher once again.
好，那么因为我们刚刚特别讲到说2021年呢 Brittany 要求这个监管可以结束，但是其实我们知道从2008年的时候，他的父亲 Jamie Spears 就要求加州的法院能够接管他的生活跟职业的这些决定。那当然接着因为连续有2次非自愿性的这种精神病的拘留，所以申请书就获准了。我们可以看一下在第二段第二句第二个单字的 petition 就是所谓的申请书。好，申请书获准的意思就是说呢，因为行为古怪，所以 Brittany 就被带到精神病院。那么监管惯例的做法，直接就会把相关的当事人呢会拥有这种所谓的 conservatorship 监管的一个这个权利，也就是照顾没有能力管理自己事务的一个成年人。我们接下来看一下第3句。第3句的地方呢，有一个限定用法的关系子句，先行词是 adults， 从 who 到句尾的地方可以左右括号，它是限定用法关系子句。不过同样在这个 adults 前面，我们可以把 concerned parties 这边画起来，这里指的是相关的人，相关的 parties。party 不是一定是派对了，就指的是一方的意思。好，那么因为在 Brittany 的这个案例当中，他2007年因为离婚，然后又失去孩子的监护权，整个的压力导致一个精神崩溃，而且这样子的状况呢，还在新闻当中被残酷的取笑，所以才会导致他的精神有些异常的这个状况。那么虽然这个监管通常是涵盖一些财务的问题，不过有一些其他的监管是非常全面的。我们在第3段请注意一下第一句的地方，第一个这个 while 它是 although 的文意哦。while 在高中英文当中经常会代替 although， 后面特别注意一下，在我们列举当中，其中有一些 some， 再提到另外一些逗点之后的 others 可以圈起来。好，那么同样这一段我们在第2句特别注意句子当中逗点之后的 as， 在这里的 as 根据上下文的推断是 because 的意思。好，所以到底这样的事件是怎么样的发展呢？我们明天还有更深入的讨论。以上是今天的内容，我是安娜，明天见。
That's it for today, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us, and make sure you join us again next time when we continue to talk about #FreeBrittany and the question of conservatorships. We look forward to seeing you again then. From all of us here at English Digest, I'm Tom.
And I'm Leah.
Goodbye.
Free Brittany.